very good evening, sir.
Very good evening.
Am I audible to all delegates?
Yes,
Good
sir.
evening, sir.
Thank you so much. So again, a warm welcome and a very good evening to all dignitaries, organizers, our esteemed faculty members, our respected resource person, Dr. Padam Singh, sir, and all delegates presented in today's session of this
Present.
3-month certificate program. So we will continue the session as sir delivered yesterday the session on sample size estimation for observational study, and today's session is for experimental study. So we again invite sir. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Amit. Is my presentation visible to all? Amit?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Please continue, sir.
दोबारा करिए. Is it not moving? Amit?
Yes, moving, sir.
Okay. So today we are discussing sample size estimation for experimental studies. So first let us understand what do we mean by experimental studies. Please see. In experimental studies, the researcher or the investigators do intervene and look at the effect of the intervention on the outcome. And that's why these are also known as interventional studies. तो एक्सपेरिमेंटल स्टडीज में हम क्या करते हैं, जो रिसर्चर है वो इंटरवीन करता है and there is an intervention and we look for what is the impact of that intervention on the outcome. And one of the classical or important example of experimental study or intervention study is randomized controlled trials. This is a unique example of experimental study, that is RCT. And in these experimental studies, there are two objectives. We are interested in testing of the difference. Please note, observation way we were interested in estimation of the parameter. Here we will be with that sample size testing for the difference. And that difference will be between two groups. One will be intervention group, another one will be control group. And the intervention outcome parameter could be a proportion or it could be an average. That's all. This is what we are saying. The objective of experimental studies is for testing with that sample size. Next. Now, as I said, by RCT, randomized controlled trial, is one of the most important experimental studies. And what is this RCT? So randomized controlled trial, this is known as RCT. This is a scientific study Please note, scientific. And this is for what? To test the efficacy or effectiveness of the intervention. जो आप intervene कर रहे हैं, उसकी efficacy क्या है, उसकी effectiveness क्या है. This is how? This is by randomly assigning the participants into two groups. Minimum two hai, it could be more than two as well. And of these two groups, one group receives the intervention, this is being tested, while the other group serves as a control, which receives the standard care, जो already है, that one. So this is brief about RCT. This is a scientific study to test the efficacy or the effectiveness of the intervention by randomly assigning the participants into two groups, and one of the group is intervention group and the other group is what we call as control group. Next. Now, what are the characteristics of RCT? भाई इसमें तीन चीजें हैं. एक तो है randomization होता है, that is participants are randomized or randomly assigned to groups, and this randomization is done to minimize bias. Okay, please note, क्यों randomize करते हैं? Just to minimize bias. And the other one is there has to be a control group, a group that does not receive the experimental or the intervention. You know, it serves as the benchmark. इसी के against में हम compare कर रहे हैं intervention को. And we do blinding as well at times, and this blinding is to concealing the group assignment. Okay, this blinding participants के साथ है, researcher or maybe both, and many more. Next. Now, how randomization is done? Please note, randomization is something which is very serious. So the randomization could be a simple randomization or a block randomization or a stratified randomization. It depends upon the study design. And what is done in randomization is a sequence of random numbers are generated. And this generation of random numbers is through a software. हमारे ज़माने में we used to, utilize the random number tables. But now the softwares are very handy. So we generate the sequence of random numbers through which we assign participants to treatment group or the control group according to the generated randomized sequence. I will explain with one example. Next. Now, implementation, how the randomization is implemented. The allocation sequence, which is concealed, okay? And what we do is we make use of opaque sealed envelopes. And this randomization is done centrally. This is not done by the researcher. This has to be done centrally. And the randomization ki integrity we have to maintain, and we have to ensure that जिस तरह से randomization किया है, the participants are allocated according to that only, correctly. Next. Now, this is example how randomization is done. Please see, this is the example where we have 30 participants. And these 30 participants have to be allocated two experimental versus control. So please see, the column 1 is serial number of the participants, and second one is the random number allocated. Please see, 1 is for treatment group and 2 is for control group. And this is how the randomization will look like. The first participant, according to this, will be allocated to the treatment group. The second participant will be allocated to the control group. Again, the third participant will go to control group. Fourth will go to the treatment group. Again, the fifth goes to the treatment group. And likewise. Now, this randomization sequence which I am showing here, this 1 and 2 will not be known. ये तो आपने open कर दिया, ये open नहीं होता है. What is done is, we prepare 30 envelopes. और हर एक एनवलप के अंदर जो है ना वो रैंडमाइज अलोकेशन दिया होता है. दिस वन दैट इट मींस द एक्सपेरिमेंटल ग्रुप, दिस विल बी केप्ट इन द एनवलप. तो बाहर किसी को पहले नहीं पता होता. So once you recruit a subject and at that serial number that envelope is opened, और ओपन करने के बाद में जो ग्रुप पता लगता है कि whether it will receive the experimental treatment or the control treatment, that is how it is assigned. So this is, I thought you have to understand before I take up the issue of sample size determination. Next. Now, जो RCTs होती हैं, it could be open level. Open level means वहां स्टडी पार्टिसिपेंट्स को पता है कि उनको ट्रीटमेंट ग्रुप में है या कंट्रोल ग्रुप में है. One can do blinding also. In blinding, if it is single blind, participant will not know. Supposing we are trying 2 drugs, ना, तो उनको जो है आउटरली दिखने में एक जैसे बनाएंगे, एक जैसे कैप्सूल्स के अंदर उनको डालेंगे. So everybody will think that they are getting the same, but it is randomized, so they are getting different, but the participant is not aware of. But others, say, researcher may know, and the one who will analyze the data will also know it. Double blind में participants और जो researcher है उससे conceal किया जाता है, and triple blind में तीनों से conceal किया जाता है. ना participants को पता है, ना researcher को पता है, ना जो analysis करेगा उसको पता है. Now these are some concepts which one has to know while understanding the intervention studies or experimental studies. Next. Now, come to sample size. When we calculate sample size, by sample size हम ऐसे नहीं calculate कर सकते. When we calculate the sample size for these interventional studies, some minimum information is required. And please see what is the information required. The first thing we require is what is the approximate value of the outcome parameter in the control group. Control group में outcome parameter की क्या value हो सकती है. Similarly, what is the likely value of the outcome parameter in the experimental group? ये दोनों हमें मालूम होना चाहिए. Supposing we are trying a drug and we want to see by as per the control treatment, 60% are getting cured. But new drugs say, we say no, it is not 60, 80% will get cured. So this is the assumption. This we have to have that information. Third is, what is the confidence level we want to attest to our findings? And last is power. How high should be the probability of rejecting or getting the result as significant. By everything is to establish what we are trying as new drug is superior. So we have to see that results are significant. So these are the basic assumptions with which the sample size is calculated. Next. Now, one has to know the formula. तो पहले तो ये है कि भाई क्या क्या हमें जानकारी चाहिए, and with that information, how the sample size has to be computed. Please see in this formula, we have, this is the easiest of all formulas, और भी formula है जो complicated है. Now this is 2pq z alpha plus z beta by d whole square. And please see what these notations means. By we will have P1 and P2, proportion for the experimental group and proportion for the control group. इन दोनों का जो average है, that is P. Q is the complement of P, that is 1 minus P is Q. D is the difference of P1 and P2. And Z alpha and Z beta values are the values from the normal distribution corresponding to desired confidence level and desired power. Now these are the built-in assumptions. Let us understand with the help of example. Next. Now ये normal distribution है, which I said, the theory of normal distribution is used in arriving at the value of Z alpha and Z beta. Next. Now, this table provides us the values of Z alpha and Z beta. As I told you, Z alpha is for confidence level and Z beta is for power. Generally, हम confidence level देते हैं 95%, so Z alpha value is 1.96. Power की value we generally take as 80%. So the value taken is 0.84. So generally, combination of 1.96 and 0.84 is used in estimation of sample size. Please note, the assumption may vary, but in most cases, it is 1.96 and 0.84. Next. Next.
I'm just
Yes, please.
it's stuck. I just take 30 seconds.
Yes, Abid.
It's a loading, sir. It's a loading. Something some technical issue. I'm just loading.
अच्छा, ठीक है, कोई बात नहीं.
I'm just loading it again.
Participants, I hope I am not very fast. My speed, my language, English, tone, it is acceptable to you all. समझ में आ रहा है कुछ?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, okay. So I am not that fast. I am trying to maintain that level. तो ये मैं Z alpha, Z beta बता रहा था कि जनरली हम 95% कॉन्फिडेंस लेवल लेते हैं जिसमें वैल्यू 1.96 है, और पावर के लिए हम 80% पावर लेते हैं जिसमें corresponding Z beta value is 0.84. Now with these and assumptions, we can find out the sample size, we can estimate the sample size. Some problem, Amit?
Just sharing again, sir.
Yeah. Now let us come to this example. Okay. Please see. Suppose the cure rate on a standard treatment is 60%. जो मैंने example दिया था आपको. A new drug is claimed to have a success rate of 80%. Okay. What is the minimum sample size required to test this claim with 95% confidence level and 80% power. Let me repeat. As per the standard treatment, the cure rate is 60%. There is a new drug जिसमें claim है कि भाई cure rate will improve to 80%. Now, one RCT is to be done. What is the minimum sample size required to test this with 95% confidence level and 80% power? Please see what is given to us. P1 is equal to 0.80 and P2 is equal to 0.60. दोनों में. The difference of these two is 0.20. Now the average of P1 and P2, okay, 60 or 70%, 80% का average होता 70%. Now this is P and Q will be 0.30. Now value of Z alpha, I told you 1.96 and Z beta is 0.84. Please put all these values here in the formula. 2 into PQ, 0.70 into 0.30, and Z alpha plus Z beta by D whole square. Put all these values in the formula and the value you get is 82. So if we have to do an RCT, for this, the minimum sample size, you need 82 participants each in the experimental group and in the control group to verify this claim. Is that okay? Simple. Next. Now, these जो trials हैं, there are different names given. So it could be equivalence trial, it could be a superiority trial, it could be a non-inferiority trial. जो हमारे RCTs होती हैं वो 3 तरह की होती हैं. एंड सैंपल साइज जो फॉर्मूला है तीनों सिचुएशंस में थोड़ा सा डिफरेंट है. सो वन इज इक्विवेलेंस ट्रायल. इक्विवेलेंस ट्रायल में मींस वी आर comparing two drugs and it is to determine whether the difference in the outcome is within the specified limit. सपोजिंग हम दो अल्टरनेटिव्स को कंपेयर कर रहे हैं एंड वो कहेंगे भाई अगर इसमें प्लस माइनस ये वैल्यू है तो दिस शुड बी टेकन एज इक्विवेलेंस. 2-3% का फर्क है, वी कैन से अरे भाई क्या फर्क पड़ता है, 60% वर्सेस 62%, वी विल से it is equivalent. So if the null hypothesis, if the P1 and P2 are within that range, defined delta, इसमें delta की वैल्यू कर दिया है. So if the difference between two treatments lies within a specified equivalence margin, वो equivalence margin we have to define. That is what we are calling as delta. So that will become an equivalence trial. In superiority trial, we have to establish the superiority of the new treatment compared to the current standard of care by specified effect size. हमको ये कहना पड़ेगा कि भाई नई जो ट्रीटमेंट है, न्यू ड्रग है, वो 20% बेटर है. So that superiority level has to be defined. So that becomes superiority trial. And the last is non-inferiority trial. Many times what happens is by diagnosis is very costly or the treatment is very costly. Somebody comes out with the cheaper one, but it is somewhat inferior. So if we say कि भाई cost reduction इसका 1/4 है, and that 1/4 we will accept the outcome if it is inferior by that pre-assigned value. If the costlier treatment has the cure rate of 65% and the cheaper one, so-called inferior one, is say 62%, so we will say कि ये non-inferior है, if it is within that limit. Okay, so this is, देखिए equivalence trial में the delta could be either side. Non-inferior में it is one-tailed delta, one-tailed equivalence. So that one has to see. Now I will discuss sample size calculation for each of these three situations. Next. Amit, next. Okay. Let us see the sample size calculation for superiority trial. एक मैंने एग्जाम्पल पहले ही बताया था, but let us see this. Suppose a researcher intends to compare the proportion of cancer patients suffering a relapse within 6 months under two treatment regimes. Please see, cancer patients and the outcome is relapse. On the basis of pilot study, the researcher assumes 50% relapse rate under standard treatment and claims to reduce this relapse rate by half. Let me repeat again. कि भाई, as per the standard of care, the relapse rate was 50%. Now one is coming out, researcher is coming out with the new treatment, claiming that the relapse rate is reduced to half. Reduced to half means पहले 50% होता था, अब ये 25% हो जाएगा. Now to test this, okay, what is the sample size required with 95% confidence level and 80% power? Now same type of thing. This example I have taken from this book reference I am citing. Please see in this situation, the value of Z alpha is 1.96. The value of Z beta is 0.84. The value of P1 and P2, it is given here. This is 0.50 and 0.25. Formula थोड़ा सा different कर दिया है. Let us come to the next slide where the formula is given. Now, please see, it is Z alpha plus Z beta square. पहले वाली जो साइड सैंपल था वो 2pq से निकाला था मैंने. Now here it is P1 Q1 plus P2 Q2. It is P1 into 1 minus P1 plus P2 into 1 minus P2. So this is in notations, it is P1 Q1 plus P2 Q2. And denominator में वही है, it was D, it is P1 minus P2 whole square. Now the values were shown in the earlier slide. Substitute these values. Z alpha plus Z beta is 1.96 plus 0.84 whole square. P1 is 0.50. Q1 is again 0.50 plus 0.25 into 0.75. That is in the numerator, and the denominator में है 0.25 square. ये सारे calculation करिए. The sample size comes out as 55. For this superiority trial, a sample of 110 cancer patients is required, 55 in each. Okay, and this sample size will provide you, results with desired confidence level and desired power. So this is the example of superiority trial. Superiority trial में sample size कम होती है. In equivalence trial, let us take up the example of equivalence trial. Next, please. Now, sample size for equivalence trial first, then non-inferiority. Suppose, see the example. A new drug for treating postpartum depression costs 1/3 the cost of existing drug. Okay. So cost wise, one is cheaper. So from previous studies, the researcher expects that the new and the standard drug will have response rate of 40% and 45%. But equivalence, बराबर ही है. And then we are required to suggest a sample size to see whether this could be taken as equivalence if the difference between the outcome of two treatment is within that specified margin of 10%. इन्होंने specified margin जो बताएगा, अगर 10% का भी फर्क होगा, we will take this as equivalence. Now in this example, please see Z alpha की same value है 1.96, Z beta is 0.84, the same thing, P1 is 0.40 and P2 is 0.45. Delta is 0.10. They say we will accept it as equivalence if it lies within 10%. Next. Now this is the formula. The numerator in the formula remains the same. Denominator में P1 minus P2 the absolute value minus delta. This is a square. If the difference between P1 and P2 is within the delta, it will be taken as equivalence. I have substituted the values of Z alpha, Z beta, P1, P2 and all that. The sample size, please see, it comes out 1529. So equivalence trial में sample size ज़्यादा होती है because the difference to be detected as significant is small. So this is what it is. If you are planning an equivalence trial, please note your requirement of sample size will be very large. Here it says 1529 in each group. So 3000, 60 उसके आसपास जो है आपको नंबर चाहिए सब्जेक्ट्स का. नेक्स्ट, नॉन इंफीरियरिटी ट्रायल. इसी में ही सपोजिंग द सैंपल साइज इज टू बी कैलकुलेटेड फॉर नॉन इंफीरियरिटी. अगर कम है ऑन द लोअर साइड द आउटकम विद द चीपर वन, and if it is within that 10%, please see इस फॉर्मूले में P1 minus P2 की एब्सोल्यूट वैल्यू नहीं ली है. As against the absolute value, it is the value as such. That is the difference in the formula. And if you substitute the values in the formula, the sample size becomes 134. So please note, सबसे कम sample size होती है superiority trial में, सबसे ज्यादा sample size होती है equivalence trial में, and then it is somewhat less relatively in the non-inferiority trial as well. It is only 134 in each group. So I hope that these three concepts, these three types of trials, and how to calculate sample size, you have seen how it works out. Next. Now, many times we plan studies, और studies plan करने के बाद में क्या होता है, either we go wrong in the assumptions or there is a shortfall in the sample size. ये generally होता है. We have planned with certain number, but when we are concluding the study, जब in conclusion stage पर है, तो पता लगा कि ओहो sample size तो कम पड़ गई. Then what? Now, what happens is one can calculate the power. It is not कि भाई sample size कम हो गई तो आपकी study goes as waste. No. The implication is one can find out with the reduced sample size, what is my power? So let us understand with one example. Next, please. Okay. जो सबसे पहले मैंने एग्जाम्पल लिया था 60% versus 80%, where the sample size estimated was 82. And suppose in that example, as against 84, or whatever was the number, 82, we end up with sample size of 64. We were able to do only 64 in each group. Then what happens is, then on the basis of जो मैंने previous slide में जो formula दिया है, now the values are here. P1 was 0.80, P2 was 0.60, the difference of this was 0.20. Okay, Z alpha is 1.96. Now n here is 64. तो मैं रिवर्स कैलकुलेशन करके Z बीटा की वैल्यू निकालूंगा. Please see how the Z beta value is calculated. Next. Now, the formula से मैंने Z beta की वैल्यू कैलकुलेट की. The value of Z beta comes out at 0.50. After substituting these values, formula को भूल जाइए आप. What you have to understand is there is a method to calculate what is the power. तो इससे जो है with this value of Z beta, normal distribution theory से the power comes out as 69.15. So if your sample size is reduced from that 82 desired to 64, it does not mean that your trial goes as a waste. Only thing is your power of the study comes down from that planned 80% to what it comes to 69.10. Please note, this is the message from here. The other thing is, we have to be very careful about the assumptions as well. The assumptions इसमें क्या है? 20% superiority, 20% ज़्यादा. And supposing we end up कि भाई बाकी सब तो ठीक था, sample size भी we were able to reach, but ultimate result में जो है difference 10% ही आया, as against the assumed 20%. Then what? Then also, please see, it has implication on power, because we assume the difference D1 minus D2 as 0.20, but it is only 0.10. And if you calculate the power, rework out the power comes to only 20%. So please be careful in making assumptions. Unless your assumptions are realistic, you do not know कि ultimate क्या होगा. One more message from here, जो मैंने कल भी बताया था. Many times we plan studies without applying any formula, without any scientific basis. हमने कर लिया भाई ट्रायल, इतने ही सब्जेक्ट्स मिले थे, इन्हीं की बेसिस पे we have done an RCT. And when you submit manuscript for publication, the reviewer will ask, what is the power of your study? How the sample size was estimated? Now, why I am explaining all this is, कि भाई आप उस sample size की basis पर power and confidence level you can calculate, and that is what it is. Next. अमित, next दिखाइए. Okay. बहुत सारी स्टडीज होती है, इंटरवेंशन स्टडी, इट इज प्री पोस्ट. अभी तक तो हम आरसीटी की बात कर रहे थे. where we have two treatments to compare. But as against this, there could be just one pre-post. Okay, these days, what is happening is कि भाई adolescents में anemia है, the hemoglobin level is very low, and you might be knowing कि भाई there is a program of IFA supplementation for these adolescent girls. This IFA supplementation is for pregnant women and other women as well. Supposing we have to plan a study, pre-post, okay, that to see the effectiveness of IFA supplementation on adolescent girls. This is the research question. Now, what way the sample size is to be calculated? The sample size to be calculated in this situation is, please see, the parameter of interest is increase in hemoglobin level. Okay? With IFA supplementation. IFA supplementation is the intervention. With that intervention, hemoglobin level में कितना increase हुआ? That is the outcome parameter. And we have to define the period. कितने में period के बाद? Supposing 3 months. After 3 months of IFA consumption, if we have to see the increase, with that assumed increase, हम चाहते हैं कि भाई 1 unit का increase होना चाहिए. And okay, in the hemoglobin level. Next, please. Okay. पहले तो ये कि भाई फॉर्मूला क्या यूज होगा इसमें. Okay. The formula here is Z alpha plus Z beta whole square, same Z alpha corresponding to the confidence level, Z beta corresponding to the power. And remember, it is sigma of delta. जो change होगा उसकी variability कितनी है, and divided by D, जो change आ रहा है, the delta square. So here the difference in the mean hemoglobin level pre and post. Z alpha is the same thing. Z alpha is the same way which I defined earlier. And sigma delta square, ये होगा standard deviation of the change. Please note, standard deviation of the change. जब change का जब standard deviation निकालेंगे, तो we will have pre values, we will have post values. जो इसका difference आएगा ना, उसकी basis पर. And please see, ये जो डेल्टा का जो सिग्मा आता है, there is a formula, sigma square of delta is equal to sigma 1 square plus sigma 2 square minus rho sigma 1 sigma 2. These values pre post will also be correlated. तो अगर हमें pre और post के values मालूम है तो उसके basis पर भी हम निकाल सकते हैं. Next, let us see the example. Okay. Now the assumptions. The average value of the hemoglobin level at the baseline before the intervention was introduced, ये value 9.9 थी. Okay, that is anemic. The adolescents are generally anemic. We want to raise it to 11 minimum. 11 is taken as safe. Okay, or 11.1, whatever it is, more than 11. So let us take 11.1. So average change between 11.1 and 9.9 is 1.2. This is we desire, we expect that इतना change जो है improvement उसमें होना चाहिए. Now the value of sigma of this difference, this delta, we assuming as 4.3. This is on the basis of previous studies. We have values of Z alpha and Z beta. Okay, it is 1.96 and 0.84. फॉर्मूला जो मैंने पिछली स्लाइड में दिया था उसमें आप ये सब्स्टिट्यूट कर दीजिए, द सैंपल साइज वर्क्स आउट एज 101। दैट मींस आप 101 एडोलेसेंट गर्ल्स में IFA सप्लीमेंटेशन कीजिए, कैलकुलेट देयर hemoglobin levels at the baseline and re-estimate their hemoglobin levels after 3 months of consumption of IFA. And this is what will give you the answer whether there has been improvement at desired or not. So this is how these studies have to be planned. Now ये जो मैंने example दी है, this example is not for proportions, this is for variables, average. इसी तरह से ही जो कंपैरेटिव स्टडीज होती है, जो RCTs होती है, many times in these RCTs the parameter of interest is average. And one example, I don't know, this is not included here. One comparison was to be done in the birth weight of children. एक तो ना असिस्टेड ART से जो कंसीव हुए हैं और जो नॉर्मल प्रेगनेंसी है, क्या इनमें जो बर्थ आउटकम होगा, बर्थ वेट ऑफ द चिल्ड्रन, वेदर इट विल बी सेम और इट विल बी डिफरेंट. So if that is the type, so there it will be average weight. So there, if we have the value, we some assumption on the variability, and there is a formula in that situation as well, and one can calculate what is the sample size required. I think this is what I wanted to cover today. I hope that we have got some inkling, some मैसेज कि भाई ट्रायल्स 3 तरह की होती हैं और हर एक का जो है assumptions and formula for calculation of sample size is different, and there is no thumb rule, and the sample size has to be calculated scientifically. Now we have time for questions. कल वाले में के भी इससे रिलेटेड सवाल पूछ सकते हैं, आज के प्रेजेंटेशन से भी रिलेटेड सवाल पूछ सकते हैं. It is open.
So
मेरे वीडियो नहीं ओपन हो रहा है. They are not okay now.
स्टार्टिंग में ओपन था सर, अभी नहीं हो रहा है.
अच्छा, okay. They should see my face also, भाई.
Yes, yes.
Participants. कभी कहीं मुलाकात हो जाए तो पहचान तो लेंगे ना.
बिल्कुल सर. अभी भी
Any questions?
ओपन नहीं है.
बताइए क्या सवाल है भाई.
All delegates, please clarify your doubts. You can unmute yourself.
Feel free.
Write in the chat box. You can unmute yourself. Any way you, as per your interest. You can ask directly by unmuting yourself, or you can write in the chat box also.
मेरे कॉन्टेक्ट डिटेल्स आपके पास हैं. माय ईमेल आईडी, माय मोबाइल नंबर. फ्यूचर में भी वही, अगर आप इफ यू आर प्लानिंग ए स्टडी और अगर आप सैंपल साइज कैलकुलेशन पर अटक गए हैं, यू आर फ्री टू कॉन्टेक्ट मी एंड आई विल बी क्विक टू रेस्पॉन्ड. क्या बात है भाई, कोई सवाल ही नहीं है, कोई क्वेरी नहीं है?
नमस्ते सर. हेलो.
यस प्लीज.
सर, फॉर कंपैरेटिव क्लिनिकल स्टडी.
ज्यादा हैवी हो गया लेक्चर है?
No sir.
हेलो सर.
Yes, yes, Dr. H. and Kulkarni sir. Yes.
हाँ जी सर. फॉर कंपैरेटिव क्लिनिकल स्टडी, is it necessary to compare the drugs which are of same form and same route of administration, or it can be anything else? Form of drug and route of administration. form of drug and route of administration, whether it is necessary to be similar.
Amit, can you read out the question?
No, it's not written, sir. He's asking,
I will write, sir. I will write.
sir, your voice is slow, I think.
हाँ, आप जरा रिपीट कर दीजिए अमित, क्या पूछ रहे हैं?
Sir, please write in the chat box.
अच्छा, ठीक है.
I will read. There is one query. If the calculated sample size is say 84, does it same for treatment group and control group, or it should be divided for two groups?
देखिए, ये जितने भी मैंने सैंपल साइज के फॉर्मूला दिए हैं ना, वो इक्वल सैंपल साइज के लिए हैं. Many times sample size may be unequal. Okay, that means ये हो सकता है कि भाई कंट्रोल ग्रुप में हम कम रखें, न्यू ट्रीटमेंट जिसको हम टेस्ट कर रहे हैं, we put it on the larger number. Many times it is 1:2 ratio also. It could be other way around. कि भाई नए ट्रीटमेंट कम को दिया और एग्जिस्टिंग ट्रीटमेंट ज्यादा को दे दिया. Now there is a slight modification in the formula, and one can always calculate the sample size if there is a change in the assumptions. I hope I have answered that question.
Dr. Next Kulkarni sir wrote that for comparative clinical study, it is necessary to have same form of drug and similar route of administration.
By what that is left to the clinician. It could be different. Treatment, when we say regimen is drug क्या है, route क्या है. The other one also you elevate drug and route. It could be different ways. अरे भाई सर्जरी होती है, सर्जरी में एक तो मैनुअल है, एक आजकल वो कौन सी होती है, रोबोटिक. Is it not? तो उसमें randomization नहीं होगा. Please note, there are situations where we should not insist for randomization. We are comparing the outcome of robotic surgery versus the routine surgery. There also, okay, the route and the method will be different. So is in the drugs. So you are right. कि भाई दोनों का route of drug जो है could be different. And in these RCTs, there is no, compulsion on that.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
But it is very, very, very important question. बड़ा सा सवाल पूछा है.
So any other query? As this is the last session of sampling, so if have any doubt, then please clarify your doubts here.
भाई ये चीजें किताबों में कहीं नहीं मिलेंगी. Please utilize my notes. Okay, keep it handy. And if you have anything in future, आप अमित को कांटेक्ट कर सकते हैं थ्रू इंस्टीट्यूट ऑफ अप्लाइड स्टैटिस्टिक्स. हम लोगों के पास आपकी क्वेरीज आ जाएंगे. आई थिंक इफ देयर आर नो क्वेश्चंस, लेट मी थैंक
Thank you, sir. Thank you so
Amit
much.
and the institute for giving me this opportunity to share my experiences, okay, with the youngsters. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for your blessings and expertise sharing with all delegates in this program. Thank you so much, sir, for your available time. So all delegates, this is the end of today's session, and tomorrow, as per schedule, there is a quiz. The link to attend the quiz will be shared in WhatsApp group, so you can attend the quiz. And the day after tomorrow, the session is on how to write inclusion and exclusion criteria. That will be delivered by Dr. G. Kranti sir. So tomorrow there is a quiz scheduled, and all delegates who are not attempted the assessment first. So I request that before the assessment 2, you need to attempt the assessment 1. So you have enough time. So if anyone missed due to some reason, as I received query from 2 or 3 participants, so you have still access to that link. You can attempt the assessment 1 before the assessment 2 as procedure. So tomorrow there is a quiz 2. The link will be shared in the WhatsApp group. Thank you, everyone. This is the end of today's session.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you so much.